Links to everything will be in the description below. The first step to create this special type of spawner, this is a spawner in which we can define the area in which something can spawn. So in this case, as long as you're inside of this collider, you can spawn at any random point. We're going to use this to control enemies spawn. We can set it so it can move around terrain like this. So we need to create an empty game object. I named mine spawner. I went ahead and selected this orange tab so I could see where it is. And then I added a polygon collider to it. You do that by clicking add component and then typing in POL or polygon and selecting polygon collider 2D. You want to make sure it is a trigger so you cannot interact with it via physics. Then if you click this edit collider button, you can move your mouse onto these points and you can see along this line I have a point, and if I go towards a corner, it'll snap in place. By default, a brand new polygon collider is going to look like a pentagon. So you can just go to your corners and drag them around. Don't mind how this line is moving around. That is just it calculating the geometry it needs to use in order to get the shape that you want. After you do that, we need to create our spawning script. So we're going to come down to our scripts folder, we're going to right click, and we're going to go create C# script, and they're going to name it spawning. So let's jump right into it. So the first part of our script is going to be our variable. We need a collider 2D called level collider, or we could name it spawn collider or something like that. This is going to be a reference to that collider that we just created. Then we're going to create a private vector2 called random point. This is going to be a random point that's generated. We're going to use the exact same system we did in the earlier melee move video, where we get a random point within a collider to determine where we want to spawn. Then we need to know what we want to spawn. This is going to be a serialized field, and it's going to be a private game object enemy to spawn. We'll need to know how often we want to spawn, which is our spawn rate. And then we're going to need a private variable called spawn time to be used in our timer. In our update, we're just going to have our timer. Timers work by saying if the spawn time is less than or equal to our time.time. So if the current time in the game is past our spawn time we want to spawn, then we want to set our next spawn time to be the current time plus our whatever our cooldown or our spawn rate is. So every spawn rate we're going to call our spawn function. And our spawn function creates a vector2 spawn point, which is going to be equal to a random point in our collider, which is this function right here. And then once we get that random point, we're going to instantiate or spawn our enemy at our spawn point at no rotation. That's what all that quaternion dot identity means here. For our getRandomPoint and collider function, the way this works is it is a function that returns a vector2. You start off by declaring a new vector2 called point that has a random x value and a random y value. The random x value is between the minimum x and the maximum x of our collider. So what that means for us, if I select this collider, is going to be between the minimum x, which is all the way over here, and our maximum x, which is this point all the way over here. Then we do the same thing for the y. So it's going to choose the lowest point and the highest point, which is probably over here. After it does that, this is a possible point. Then we ask if that point is inside of the collider or outside of the collider. The closest point right here means that it is outside of our collider. So if we're outside, we're going to go fishing again. We're going to go try and find a new point. This means that I'll keep looking for a new point until it finds one that is inside of our collider. Then once it finds one, we're just going to return that point. That's all there is to spawning, so we just need to hook it up. So we're going to attach our script. We're going to feed in our polygon collider. What I just did was drag from here right to our level collider. We need to assign our enemy, which is in our prefabs folder. And then we're going to set our spawn rate. I'm going to choose 5 for mine. And when we hit play, we'll be able to see it spawn. So we got one guy that spawned. We're going to wait a little bit longer. We're going to see another guy spawn inside. Yep, he spawned right there. Wait a little bit longer and we'll see another guy spawn inside. He spawned right there. So as you can see, it is working. We are spawning enemies inside of our collider. They currently can move within a larger collider. So that's why you're seeing them leave the little bounds. This will be a very useful spawning system for spawning enemies when in respects to terrain. So that way we could have like, they only spawn in the back corner of a room or what have you. I hope you found this video interesting. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Comment if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next one.